Rise and Grind podcast, episode 7. We have my good friend Dylan Eckes joining us today. And Dylan and I, gosh, we've known each other for a long time. Ever since high school, and over the last 5 or 6 years, we became very good buddies. We don't talk a lot, so it was great to catch up with him. But I do know he's one of those friends that if I ever need anything and I called him, he would pick up the phone and vice versa. And having those people in your life is amazing. You'll hear right away from Dylan's tonality that everything he touches, he's very passionate about, and he is in the space of helping people. Now, he started out by helping people with their fitness and nutrition goals. He then phased into the financial realm, and now he's into helping business owners, sorry, grow their businesses. And when his foundation of his life is service and helping people, and I think that's a very admirable way to live life. And one of the things that I appreciate most about Dylan is that he lives it, meaning like when he's giving people advice, if he's giving people advice on fitness, like he does it, he lives it, he does the things that he coaches on. Same in the business realm, we get into it a little bit. I can tell he knows exactly what to say to business owners because he is living and breathing what he is preaching. And I think that's incredibly important when people reach out for help with whatever it is that you're getting advice from people that can actually do the things, pull the levers that they say will help you. And secondly, when I think of Dylan, I think of one word that comes to my mind: discipline, period. I think Dylan is one of the most disciplined people that I've ever met. And that obviously shows in the way that he is engaged and shows up for his family, the way that he is able to be a successful entrepreneur, the way that he started the Inner Man Project with our other friend Shane Cockrell in Medicine Hat here, which was a non-for-profit that helped with men's mental health. They expanded throughout Alberta before shutting their doors, unfortunately. But we get into that. We get into so many cool topics that I really didn't think we were going to get into, but I love these organic conversations. This is literally why I don't have a roadmap for these conversations, because you never know where they're going to go. And Dylan gave so much value away, and I really appreciated his time, his vulnerability, and also his friendship. So without further ado, Dylan Eckes, hope you enjoy. All right, we are live with my good buddy Dylan Eckes. Thanks, man, for your time. We were just chatting before I hit record about what you're up to, man. Give us the cliff notes, where you're at, what you're doing, and how you got there.
Yeah, so I'm in Calgary, Alberta, and we moved here in 2022, and it was specifically for our careers. My wife is in social services. She's with CFS right now. I took a job, and I won't go into the details of it, but
Yeah,
I used to be a financial advisor. I used to run my own practice, and I sold that practice back in 2021 after about 6 years in business.
gotcha.
What had happened was it became very difficult for me to stay focused on what I was doing when I had other interests. And so
Mhm.
what actually brought me up here for my career today is a larger financial services company. I was in talks with them for about 6 to 8 months, but they offered me a consulting role. And so I've been up here. I've been in that consulting role for now, well, almost 3 years. And so, yeah, that's why we're in Calgary. I'm in all of Southern Alberta, Southern Rockies area, and I help business owners build their business better.
There we
I
go.
help expand teams. I look at profit margins. We do everything on the business side of financial services. So that's what I've been doing, and that's why we're here in Calgary.
That's awesome, man. And I love that you put that, last bit that you just help people grow their businesses, right?
Yeah.
And that sums up what you do quite well. Now, talk to me, Dylan. I know kind of a bit of your background, but whether it be the personal development space or helping people with their financials or their business, like how did you get into that space? I know, like we went to high school together,
hmm
but when did it kind of start in the back of your mind that you wanted to help people? Because when I look at you, man, I'm like, Dylan frickin' spends his whole life helping people. So when did that start?
Well, thank you for that. I appreciate that. And I think a lot of it had to do, like when I was in high school, I wanted to be a police officer. I always had this sense like I had to serve people.
Hmm.
And I don't know where that started from in my childhood, but I always felt like I had to be in the community. I had to be helping people. Long story short, because of my vision and other, physical, I guess you could say, disabilities for becoming a police officer, I couldn't do it. And so I actually went down a complete opposite path, a path that actually suited me a little bit more at the time. And that was personal training and dieting people and the nutrition side of health and fitness. And so I worked my way up the big box gyms that way. Kind of the same thing. I hit my ceiling very fast, though, with the big box gyms. And so I got out of the corporate side and I started doing my own thing. And that just progressed as time went on. One thing that frustrated me with the corporate side and the big box gyms is I couldn't help people on the nutritional side of things. So I would, spend 12 hours a day in the gym training people, but then I have no say in what they go eat. I have no say on the supplements they go buy. And because of our regulatory bodies and because at the time we couldn't do that, right? So
Really?
yeah,
Wow.
yeah, it was more of like a corporate thing. We can't, we can't cross section these two. We can't be a personal trainer and nutritionist, and I just never believed in that. And so I started my own business, Dynamic Nutrition and Performance, back in 2013, and that became very successful. At one point in time, when I switched careers to finance, was at the peak of my nutrition. And peak of my personal training business, and I had just over 100 clients on a monthly basis. It was a full-time gig. I was doing very, very well at it, but I kind of lost my passion for it, and I can get into that. But yeah, long story short, I just felt like I needed to do more. And so as time progressed, I started realizing that a lot of the things that held people back from hiring a nutritionist and keeping on with the program was their finances. And, I had a couple of ideas in mind of what that looked like. But I truly believe that God has a plan, and what had transpired was I actually got in touch with an old friend of ours, a former friend of ours from high school. He introduced me to his father. Long story short, I was like, "This is what I want to do. I want to get into financial services, like, and I don't want to, get into the space just to speak to people that have money. I want to help people create wealth. I want to help people build something for themselves, have financial security, build a life that they can rely on." And that was something that I really never had growing up until I was a teenager. My parents really struggled. My dad is an entrepreneur. My mom was very sick growing up. So I never really had that financial well-being, and I never was really educated on it, but I was very passionate about it. So in 2016, I decided to, burn the bridges, basically, burn all the boats with personal training and fitness, and completely switch careers. And yeah, the rest is history. Today, it's almost 10 years later, and I'm still in financial services.
That's crazy. So I wanna take this chunk by chunk, if you don't mind, Dylan.
Sure.
And the personal training space, number one,
Hmm.
that's crazy they wouldn't let you advise on nutrition.
Yeah.
But tell me like the top few mistakes. You're taking someone, they want to slim down or they want to get in better shape, they want to feel better. When you were in that world, what were like the top couple mistakes that they people just couldn't get through their head, and it would just frustrate the crap out of you? Because I know in my
Hmm.
world there's certain things that frustrate the crap out of me, so I'm sure it's the same in that personal training space.
Yeah, I mean, I think every individual is different, but the one thing across the board that really stuck out to me is people's consistency. And there's that old saying like people live for the weekend, and what you notice as a personal trainer is people can go to the gym 3 to 4 days throughout the week. They might stick to the nutrition, 90% of the time, but as soon as the Friday night hits or the weekend hits, it's a wrap. They're off the nutrition, they're eating whatever they want, they might go out for a few drinks, and by the time Monday rolls around, they're feeling like crap, and then they have to start all over. So number one was consistency. Number two is people get lost in the weeds with different things in terms of nutrition, and different topics, whether that's the keto diet, carnivore diet, Mediterranean diet. You could go on for days about the different ways you should approach nutrition. And what I found was, if you got in whole food, get rid of the processed food. So nothing in a wrapper. If you just ate fruits, clean carbohydrates, meaning rice, potatoes. If you ate a decent amount of vegetables and got, roughly a gram per pound of protein in every day, it was a complete game changer. So making nutrition simple. And here's the thing, when you stay consistent with that simple nutrition, I'm guilty of it too. I think we're all guilty of it. But when we, decide to go have that one or two cookies, it turns into next day having a muffin or a donut, and then the next day after that, maybe having a drink or wine or a beer with dinner, and then it snowballs. But if we can stay consistent for 3, 4, 5 weeks at a time, and really, really mitigate all those small little mistakes, those simple, nutritious decisions, they actually become good. It's what you end up craving. If you crave salt, it's probably because you're low on fat. If you're craving carbohydrates, probably eat some fruit. You'll feel way better. So it's little things like that where people make the mistake of looking for the next best thing in nutrition rather than just focusing on simple food, right? And finally, it's just training. I think the biggest thing with training is being intense and being impactful about it, right? If I'm going to save money, for an example, what would be more impactful? Is it going to be more impactful to put $50 biweekly into a TFSA account to create a cash flow or a cash reserve or an emergency fund? Or would you want to add saving the 2, 3 Tim Hortons a day that you go buy, right? So with those things, it's just compounding, right? And same with the workouts. When I'm in the workout, I don't want to be on my phone. I don't want to be taking pictures the whole time. There's a time and place for it. But when we're doing the training, it's got to be impactful and it's got to be consistent. So that's what I would say about the training side of things.
We could stop the podcast right there, and there's enough value there. And I love that your methodology with nutrition is keeping it simple. Like there's a saying out there that the simple solves the complex, and that's so true. Now, I know it to be true in your standpoint, Dylan, and this is something I really, really appreciate from you, is that you practice what you preach. And I think that's incredibly important when people are getting advice from someone. It's like me in the golf world. I'm like, why would I take golf advice from someone that can't beat me?
Yeah.
Right? Whereas with you, you're actually practicing what you're teaching people. Was that an important concept to you? Because like when I'm scrolling Instagram and someone's giving nutrition tips and they're out of shape, I'm like, well, that doesn't make sense, right? Is that something that you were aware of, or when did that come into play?
I think for me was when I used to train people for contest prep. The thing that really bothered and frustrated me is they always, and it goes back to the first thing I said, there was always the next best coach. There's always the next best thing of doing it. And whether it's saving money to buy something or just wealth in general, whether it's your fitness, whether it's your faith, whatever direction of life you go into, it's just keeping it simple and staying consistent. So that was something that frustrated me. But more importantly, what really frustrated me, and still to this day, is kind of the same thing what you said about golf, is when I see, specifically in the bodybuilding world and the fitness competition world, is when we have these competitors who are not healthy. I think health is when I say health, I mean your hormones, I mean the sleep that you're getting, the relationships you have, the financial standpoint that you're in. When I see competitors giving advice, but I know that 5 out of those 6 things that I just mentioned are not aligned, and they're all over the place, and they have crap relationships. They're not good with their finances. They don't sleep well, but they might take performance enhancing drugs and train, and they got a good genetic for it. That frustrates me because you're not practicing what you preach, right? It would be the same thing as a financial advisor, and I've talked to people about this. If you're not buying the life insurance that you're selling, if you're not investing into the same funds that you're promoting as an advisor, that makes no sense to give advice on that to somebody else, right? So it's little things like that. It just goes back to your golf point.
Yeah, I think anyone out there that's looking to get better at something, it doesn't matter what it is, it's like, there's a million different ways that and opinions of people, but if those people can't actually do it, then to me it discredits them, and that's something I've admired of you, is because I know that you practice what you preach. Now, I want to talk about kind of the transition from personal development space into the financial space, and we don't have to get into the weeds, but if you don't mind, Dylan, you mentioned that you're kind of at the peak of your former business when you made that shift. Can you talk about the emotions or the fear in that transition, knowing that, like, hey, you're doing really good business here, but something just wasn't in alignment? going into like this new scary place. How did that feel?
Yeah, I think a lot of it, Ryan, was I was in this position where I had all this knowledge and information, but it's really weird. In the financial services industry, we deal with a lot of people that are 55, 60 years old getting ready for retirement. They spent their whole lives building their wealth. They've made sometimes bad financial decisions, but for the most part, people who are wealthy that are 55, 60 have made good financial decisions. And what was really hard and difficult for me at the time was I wasn't even 30 yet, and I was trying to give financial advice to somebody who had the wealth and had the experience. Even though I knew all this knowledge, even though I would speak to their accountant or their lawyer, whoever else was involved, I had troubles and difficulties relaying that and getting people to take action. And it was simply, and there's no harm, no foul. It's no one's fault. But what I found is I actually did a better job of coaching business owners rather than coaching clients. And so the thing with very successful individuals, not just financial advisors, is the people who are successful will listen to information. They will take action. They will do the things that are necessary. They will get uncomfortable. They will do the things that get them from point A to point B in the most efficient way possible. It doesn't matter if it's coming from a 30-year-old guy or a 28-year-old guy. It matters if it matters to their business and if there's something that they can take from it. And what I noticed is when I started as a consultant, it was the middle of the road advisors and it was the middle of the road business owners who were kind of stagnant for 10, 15 years, who weren't taking my advice, but it was the people who were making seven figures a year, who were growing their teams, who were meeting with the high net worth clients that were taking my advice. And the thing with my position that I am and that I'm doing now is I'm not giving some magic pill. I'm not giving some magic formula. I just know the things that work. I know the type of conversations that need to be had with people. I know the language that we need to leverage when we're speaking with individuals. And so the people who are successful started taking that advice. And now it's just snowballed into everybody taking that advice. And that's where I'm really seeing the success is the coaching side of things. I won't lie to you. I probably will be a financial advisor at one point in time in the future. But it'll be when I'm more experienced. It'll be when I'm a little bit older and I'm a little bit more trustworthy to the average Joe and to the public.
Gotcha. It's interesting how like sometimes just simply youth can be something that's holding you back just because of your appearance too, right? Because
Yeah.
if you're sitting across the table with someone and they have it in your mind, well, how would you know these things? You're only 30 or 20, whatever the number is. I
Mm-hmm.
felt that in real estate too.
Yeah.
Not so much now because I've been in it a bit, but my first few years, I'm like, I've literally lost out on listings just because these older folks looking to sell their house want someone that looks more like them. And
Yeah.
it's tough. It's definitely something to overcome, but you just got to keep working at it, right?
Well,
So,
and that's the thing, right, Ryan? It's like I understood that when I sold my business, I sold my business to experienced advisors and they were able to churn over business like crazy. So what's the common denominator there? It was, I built these relationships, these people quote unquote trusted me, but there was something about taking advice from a 29-year-old guy when they're 65. What do you know about retirement, right? And so that was a little bit more difficult. If I had to go back and redo it over, I'd be probably more proactive in the podcast and social media space. The difficult thing with people my age when I started, which was when I was 24 years old, not very many 24-year-olds have millions of dollars or hundreds of thousands of dollars to invest, and trying to convince them to invest $100 a week or $100 bi-weekly instead of going out on the weekends is a difficult task. So what ends up happening is you have to rely on your natural network. I think a lot of my success came from business owner space. When I was a financial advisor, all of my success came from the employee benefit space, the group retirement services space, going to businesses and saying, this is what you need. This is the reason you need it. This is for your employees. This is going to make your business better. And I think that actually helped me today talking to business owners. There's something, and you probably know this too, there's something intimate about talking about personal finances compared to talking about your business. I don't know what it is. I don't know what magic wall or magic curtain is in somebody's way. But if I want to speak to a high net worth individual about their insurance, they might be a little hesitant. And that's because whether they got a medical background or medical history, maybe there's some grief or loss in their family, maybe they've had bad luck with personal insurance or personal investments. But the business side of things, we can have a full on discussion about, immediate financing arrangements, corporate retirement strategies. We can have totally different conversations than we would individually. So that's helped me a lot today in the business that I do.
Yeah, you're right. The underlying tonality of like, personal bank accounts or insurance or anything like that, the underlying foundation is kind of almost negative. Whereas you talk about business, it's all of a sudden, to a business owner, that's positive. They want to basically brag to you about their successes, which they should.
Yeah,
And then I'm assuming then too, the tweaks that you can make, they're probably going to see results a lot quicker if they take that action,
for
right?
sure, for sure. Yeah.
That's good stuff, man. Now, from your exposure into business owners running their own businesses, how's the landscape changing? I mean, I know COVID fast forwarded us quite quickly in terms of podcasting, in terms of being able to reach and the speed of which business is done. But in your years of helping business owners, where do you see things heading? Where are some maybe blind spots that small business owners can maybe be aware of ahead of time?
Yeah, so there's directions I'm going to take this conversation. The first one is at the beginning of COVID, and I was an advisor at the beginning of COVID, we really saw a shift to the digital, right? We saw a shift to what we're doing right now, that Zoom space, that video conferencing space, but we also saw a shift of people moving to DIY investing. And the reason being is because, well, if I can't meet with my advisor in person, I can just do it myself. And I'm doing everything. I'm instant carting my groceries. I'm skipping the dishes with my food. Everything at that point in time was on the phone at your fingertips. And so what ended up happening, we saw a large shift to the DIY space. Fast forward to 2024, we saw a huge decrease in people going to the DIY space. In fact, more and more people today are leaving the DIY space. And most people would say, well, why is that? Why did we see a shift to it and then from it so quickly? People want human advice. I don't know. Again, there's that magic curtain in the middle. There's that false wall, that false narrative that we put on ourselves. But what we're seeing in the business owner space, specifically in financial services, is they want the efficiency of doing a DIY, but they want human advice. And so our business has shifted to a lot of digital. And so whether that's financial planning portals where an advisor and a client can do things together, we're seeing a lot more AI technology be brought in. For an example, a couple of years ago, if you wanted to sit down and open a new account, an RSP, TFSA, whatever it is, it might take, upwards of 6 to 10 weeks to transfer money from another institution. Today, it can take up to 5 days. That's it. That's the turnaround time. That's opening the account. The notes are in place, the compliance factors in place, and now the next institution is transferring that funds over. It's just a more seamless transition, right? So I think when it comes to the landscape of overall business in general, AI has taken a huge hit to administrative duties. It's funny. I was just talking to an advisor a couple weeks ago, and we used to think growing up that like robots would take over, AI would be taking over construction and things like that. It's actually taking over the administrative side of things. If I can do a Zoom call and it has AI transcript involved with it, and now I don't have to type up 30 to 40 minutes worth of client notes afterwards. It's all compliance is all right there. That saves so much time. Booking people in, now all of a sudden, if you have 1,000 clients that you're dealing with and everything is AI automated, so is your schedule. So it's taken a step forward technology wise and AI wise, and it's really hindered a lot of people because there's a misconception that it's a bad thing. And I personally believe that we can leverage these tools without having to risk people's jobs. I think that we can just start implementing the tools instead of replacing people, taking people and leveraging the tools more efficiently.
Dude, that's the same in real estate space, and what I want people to hear is like the human element is actually more important this year and moving forward than it was 3 years ago.
Yes.
100%. Now, on the other side of that, it's like AI. all the cloud-based, like my whole brokerage is cloud-based. Like
Mm-hmm.
to me, AI, all these efficiencies help me get to more humans, help me sit in front of more people and get more relationships to scale accordingly. People think like, oh, AI is going to take over the world. It's not, but we need to keep an eye on how can we scale our business using it. Because I'm the same way, man. It's like now to edit a podcast or to do social media clips, I don't have to hire someone to do it. I
That's
literally
right.
click a button and it's all done, right?
Yeah,
So
man.
that
Yeah.
job's going away, but it helps me scale faster.
Right. And I love what you just said, scale faster. Okay. So one of the concerns that's always been brought up is AI is going to take the administrative positions in the executive assistance jobs. No, it's actually going to make their lives more efficient. And the reason I say that is like I think of like we use Salesforce as a CRM, like very lots of companies do.
Yep.
One thing we do with the Salesforce side of things is we AI a lot of things and we put things into a fashion where it's sent to the advisor, it's sent to the person via email or given a notification. So instead of having a stack of papers, we live in a completely paperless world in the financial services space. Anything that's paper still today is from 10 years ago. So when we take a look into, okay, efficiencies in the way we conduct meetings, the efficiencies in scheduling people, it comes down to like getting a notification that it's someone's birthday and you send out a quick note on an email that it's their birthday, or this person, and instead of putting it into a calendar or trying to remember when someone's wedding is coming up, it's in our Salesforce, it's sending you an email, you send out that wedding gift right away, right? So it's little things like that where it's creating efficiency, but it allows you as the advisor or you as a business owner to be client facing and go and doing the thing that matters the most, and that's create revenue, right? And so for me, it's just about creating efficiencies in everyone's life so we can continue to scale and do more with what we have, right?
Yeah. Or ideally do more with less time, honestly. Like that's and I know a lot of people are kind of scared of the AI space. And I don't think we need to be like front of mind researching it all the time. You just need to be curious enough to click around, see what's trending and just trying things and seeing how it implements. And then all of a sudden you're like, holy smokes, this literally saves me hundreds of dollars a week, and it also cuts my time spent on that task down 10x. So
Right.
I think it's really cool. Now, in your business, Dylan, right now,
Mm-hmm.
for clientele, are you at the point where it's pretty much word of mouth referral, or do you have some type of lead generation still that you have to take care of?
The company I'm contracted with, we actually have we're the largest group benefits and group retirement services provider in Canada, and so we have an internal lead generation. But what I can say is financial services is really weird, and I'll give you an example. When I was in practice with a private broker, we had a lead generation, but it was first come, first serve. So these leads would be generated, but they'd be sent out to 10 advisors at a time. So whoever got there first, good luck. And so it's a weird space that we're in because we have to rely heavily on compliance. Where we are seeing massive success, and you know this, is DIY videos and social media. And when I say social media, I don't mean just, Facebook videos. It's being active on LinkedIn. It's being active on Twitter. It's being active on YouTube, making quick short videos. And again, going back to AI, a lot of business owners will say, "Well, I don't have the time for it." Okay, so my question is, I had an individual last year who hired a marketing firm. They spent an entire day. They made about 45 videos that were all like 1 minute long, and they used AI scripting throughout the whole thing. So one day, the whole year, and she created over 6 figures of revenue because of those videos, directly correlated to social media. It's
Wow.
the ability is there, right? So for me, it's just, I think a lot of it has to do with mindset. If I just rely on leads that are generated from my company or the funnel that I purchase as a third party consumer, I'm really cutting myself short. Where a lot of the referrals, a lot of word of mouth is going to be, I follow this guy on LinkedIn. You should probably follow him back, or you send it to each other's friends. That's the new way of referrals, right? It's like I've seen your podcasts, I've seen your posts, I've shared your posts before. And for me, it's just like, I know that works. So I'm going to share for somebody else's business. I'm going to share the people that I trust. I'm going to share the things. So if I'm doing it, why wouldn't anybody else be doing it? So that's the mindset shift that we have to get into. I think with lead generations, that's great. But if I can have somebody who watches my content, share it to a friend, that friend reaches out to me, that's going
Mhm.
to be a way warmer introduction and a way better conversation than calling somebody who's interested in life insurance on a very vague term, right?
Yeah, it's like, gosh, and for whatever reason in Medicine Hat, it's everywhere with realtors, but like, there's a bunch of like billboards or like park benches and I'm like, gosh, like, there's no value there. You can't
Mm-hmm.
get value like that. Like, in order to attract relationships, you must lead with value, and the easiest way to do that is to give value away in whatever you're doing with no anticipation of ever getting anything. And the unfortunate part, as you know, is yeah, it feels uncomfortable and it's called delayed gratification for a reason, right? Like
Right, right,
give value with no expectation of receiving anything over and over and over, and then
right,
all of a sudden a referral comes and you're like, oh, that was nice, right? They
right.
already know you, like you, trust you. That relationship's already at least started.
Well, and this is what I've said to advisors in the past and other business owners too, because I've done a little bit of consulting outside of the space. What would be more impactful? Spending $5,000 on a billboard, or I reach out to my top 10 previous clients from the last 2 years and I take them out to a nice dinner and I have a guest speaker, or I'm doing and we could get an advisor with a real estate agent and doing first time homebuyers 101. And we teach potential first time homebuyers everything they need to know about the mortgage and real estate side of things and then the financial security side of things. That's going to be more impactful for your business than spending $5,000 on a billboard.
So true, man.
Another thing that you could do, and this is something that I've said to every business owner, not just advisors, is creating a client council. So we call it a client advisory council, but the idea then is I'm going to reach out to my top 5 clients from the last year. I'm going to take them all out for dinner, maybe individually, maybe together, but the idea is getting feedback. What could I have done differently to make your process smoother? Because they've already bought something from you. They're already your client. So they're going to trust you. And what that does is it shows trust in them that they made the right decision, but you're also saying, I trust your opinion. So now all of a sudden you're saying, what can I do differently? And at the end of that conversation and at the end of that dinner, you say to them, is there anybody else in your network that I could speak to about what we spoke to about tonight? Right? So
God, yeah.
those are so much more impactful than going out and getting that bus billboard or that billboard on the side of the highway.
Yeah, yeah. It's man, anyone in this space, whether it's real estate or financial, like in your world, I do think most people are sitting on a gold mine of business in their past clients and current relationships, and they just don't want to mine it for whatever reason. It's
Mm-hmm.
because it's like there's something sexy about like engaging a marketing firm and paying them for like these PPC leads or like some squeeze page lead, and you're like, oh, I got a lead, I got to call it. And I'm not saying you shouldn't do that, but that needs to just be a sliver, not the whole dinner plate of how you generate future business. Because what you just said there, to me, that's way more impactful because you already have folks that have relationships with you, and if you help them, they want to help you. But sometimes it just takes asking them, literally just
Yeah.
asking them, right?
Yeah. That's that mindset thing, right? It's like I'm uncomfortable asking for business. I'll ask you, what's your favorite restaurant in Medicine Hat?
Oh, Earls,
Okay. How many people have you taken to Earl's in the last 10 to 15 years of your business and life?
a shit ton.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So like for me, it's just like that's how restaurants work. You
yeah,
know, it's just like I don't know how many people I've referred to still to this day
yeah,
to my massage therapist from Medicine Hat who I haven't seen in 4 years.
yeah.
Right? So like this idea that there's this like uncomfortableness of referring business when you build relationships and you build trust and you give real value, that's the important aspect too, is you have to create real value. You had to have gotten them, in your world, you had to have gotten them the best deal on their dream house or whatever situation, commercial real estate, whatever they were looking for. You got them the best deal. It was the best service. You went above and beyond. You created value for them, right? You can't be asking somebody you didn't create value for, you didn't sell a product to. So it's
Exactly.
important. That's the important aspect. But you know, for me too, there's something else that it comes into this is also understanding where your client market is at. What is your niche focus? Now, there's always some conversation about that, right? It's just like, well, I don't have a niche. I serve everybody. You're going to get to a point in business where you can't serve anybody, everybody. And so who are you focusing in on, right? Who is that? You know, I took my wife on our anniversary last year to a Michelin star restaurant. It's the first time we ever experienced something like that. When you walk into that restaurant, it is the people that you think are going to be there. Their focus of clientele is not going to be the same people that go to McDonald's 3 times a week, right? So whether it's a restaurant business, a client advisory practice, a real estate business, you have to focus in on who your natural client is going to be, and then go all in on that client.
I
You
love
know,
that.
I think that personally, when I think of being a personal trainer, I tried to do the whole health and fitness and wellness thing, and I would always help out friends, families, and things like that. But what I found is like I got into the competition space. Okay, I did really well there. I was a well-known coach in that area for a long time. And then I took it one step further where I was like, I'm only going to deal with female clients because unlike males, they listen and they want to see results. But more importantly, their health is so much more important. Whereas I found men neglected their health. Women want to take care of their health so they can eventually be moms and become wives and have a long longevity life. So for me, it was, I'm going to focus in on simply these two categories of fitness competitions, and it was wellness and bikini. And so for me, that's all I focused in on. And that's all I wanted to do and help people with was achieve those goals and get on stage and reverse diet out of that so they took care of the health after the fact. And so it's the same thing in real estate. It's the same thing with financial advisors. It's the same thing if you're starting a construction company. If you're starting a construction company, you can't be doing your plumbing and electric and concrete and frame. No, what do you want to focus in on? Do you want to be a developer? Well, then you're going to need to delegate those duties. Are you going to be an electrician? Are you going to do a commercial or real estate? Are you going to do or residential? Are you going to do residential? Are you going to do smaller homes or high net worth homes? So it's like you just got to keep digging deeper to find out what your niche is, and then just go all in.
Yeah, man. And I'm victim of this exact thing that we're talking about is just getting to so many places where you're everywhere but nowhere at the same time. Meaning like, starting another business to try to help agents and team leaders grow their own business. And then also trying to be a high producing agent in Medicine Hat. And then becoming a dad. And I'm like, I can't do all of these things because if I do, then none of them are going to go well. Right?
Right, right.
So it's like not only niching down in your own kind of business, but it's also from a more macro level. Like, what are you niching down and getting rid of in order to open up time and space to do what you like? And
I've also been the victim of that. I've been guilty of that as well. Going to the dad space or the bodybuilding space, and I have these different siloed lives that I live, right? And when I'm at work, I put on the consultant hat. When I'm at home, I put on the most of the time the father hat. And then when I'm with my wife, I put my husband hat on with my wife. And you have to silo them, because that's work life balance. That's true work life balance. And so, I think of bodybuilding for an example. For a long time throughout my bodybuilding career, quotations, because I'm not really a competitive bodybuilder. Well, I am, but not a professional. I was dipping my toes into jiu-jitsu and dipping my toes into Muay Thai, and up until like a couple of years ago I was still boxing, and it just hindered my progress because I had so many different interests, and now that's all I focus in on is like my sleep, my nutrition, and training. And so when it comes to my fitness, this makes me happy, so I'm going to go do this, right? And it's kind of the same thing with being a father. It's kind of the same thing with being a husband and being a business owner.
so true, man. Well, let's dive into the fatherhood aspect of things. Um, how has that changed you?
Dude, I would not be where I am today without being a father. I truly think it gives us another gear and capacity for love and humility that we just don't get without being a father. And I say that in a meaningful conversation. Like, in a meaningful way, because like my wife is my rock. She's my everything. She's my best friend. But if we didn't have our kids, we probably wouldn't be as motivated as we are. We
Yeah.
probably wouldn't have the goals and dreams as desires as we do when we have children. And so I think that for me personally, it gave me more compassion. It gave me more humility. But it also gave me a lot more confidence in other areas of my life. Right. And so, you know,
Interesting.
it's just like, a couple of years ago, I had somebody say to me, like, I hate having difficult conversations about compliance or, being a branch manager and being a manager or a boss of somebody. Like, they're just uncomfortable. I'm like, I have 4 kids at home. These conversations are super easy. Like, it's just like, I don't mind having a conversation of whether or not somebody should be in this career or should find another career. Like that's easy to me because I have to deal with my 11-year-old who's just experienced his first quote unquote heartbreak. It's just like it's a completely different thing. So like for me, it was the humility side, it was the compassionate side, and it's the capacity for love, man.
Yeah, man. There's emotions that are available and I've felt now that I literally didn't know existed
Totally.
before having a kid, which is so cool, right? Like it's like literally I call it like this new whisper in the back of my mind that I have when I know I'm not being my best self, and it's like, man, that little whisper was not there before. Whatever
Yeah.
it is, I mean, that's how I explain it, whether that makes sense or not. But it's like this guiding force that just was not there. And it's when guys told me, "Oh yeah, you won't know until you have a kid." I'm like, "Well, that what does that mean?" But I totally know now what they meant, right?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
talk to me about how aware you are that your kids are watching you, because your kids are getting a little older now. Mav
Hmm.
is still young, so he obviously will be watching me more as he grows. But talk to me about that and kind of your awareness of being their hero essentially.
So, you know what I think is funny before I get into that? We were in the same homeroom class in high school, and then we named our sons the same name. So that's hilarious because
There we
Maverick
go.
is now 5, Sloan is now 5. I have twins. Yeah, you know what? So when we ran the Interman project, we did a program called the Intergenerational Trauma Treatment Model. And the idea was we don't realize the traumas that we're passing on to our children. So I'll give you an example. For every one negative comment, science has proven that we need 3 positive affirmations to negate that.
Hmm.
Okay, so that was a big eye opener for me. It was. I grew up with a hard ass dad, and he was always on my case about doing my best in school, making sure that the job was done right and correct the first time. But there wasn't a lot of "I'm proud of yous." And, he's a nice guy. He's a lovely guy. But there wasn't just a lot of that. He didn't know any better, right? It was like, oh, yeah, you're supposed to tell your kids you're proud of them all the time. It's just like, so for me, it was eye opening in that sense. The other side of things is you don't realize the impact and what their perception is until they start vocalizing it. And I'll give you an example of that. So we have 2 of our kids go to therapy right now for different aspects. We are big into the mental health space. We think it's very beneficial for whether it's their education, social environment. They don't go to the therapist because they're depressed. They go there to be better people. So when we were having the initial conversations and interviews, it was kind of eye opening the way my son perceived me and my wife. So for an example, she asked my son who's 8, is there anything at home that scares you, thinking like monsters in the closet type of thing. And they were like, yeah, when my parents raised their voices. And she kind of got concerned, and she's like, tell me more about that. Me and my wife are kind of sitting there, and his idea of raising voices is, well, when it's dinner time and mom and dad yell for us upstairs, because our living room we have upstairs, and it's dinner time, that startles him. So then you get to thinking, how is that startling you? And then you have to put yourself into the mindset of the worst thing that's ever happened to you is the worst thing that's ever happened to you.
Yes,
So
sir.
for him, the worst thing that's ever happened to him is if him and his brother are arguing, because they're 8 and 5, like normal little kids do, and they hear somebody walking up the stairs, they don't want to get in trouble. That's the worst thing that's ever happened to him. So for him, his perception of mom and dad raising their voices is literally us calling them for dinner and being startled. And so when you put yourself into that aspect of it, it's just like, oh man, you really got to watch your P's and Q's to make sure that you're present, that you're engaged, and that you're saying the right things to them always, because they are always watching. And it makes me think, after my time in therapy, how many times in my life my parents didn't, quote unquote, live up to the expectations of what I think a parent should now. And it had nothing to do with them being bad people. It was just a lack of information and understanding, right?
Man, that's crazy. It's so true though, right? Like, you know, the just the constant I call it like kind of a buzz of knowing that they're watching. Like even
Mm-hmm.
like there's one thing of being physically there with your kid. There's a whole nother thing of being present, right? And I'm bad with my phone, especially, you know, busy times of day. And sometimes I just have to be aware, like put your frickin' phone down, right?
Yeah.
Like
Mm-hmm.
it's hard, but they watch, man, and I appreciate what you shared there. That's super insightful. And you're right. The worst thing that's ever happened to someone is the worst thing that's ever happened to someone.
Yeah.
And man, it's whether that's dealing with kids. I literally had a situation yesterday where I had some clients, they're stressed about selling their house like they're crazy, and the other agent couldn't understand why this is a big deal. And I'm like, it's a big deal to them, and just because we don't see it as a big deal doesn't mean it's not a big deal, right?
Right. Right.
So it's transferable in numerous different ways there, man. Crazy, crazy, crazy. Now, I wanted to mention, you had mentioned Interman Project Foundation. That it was a
Mm-hmm.
not-for-profit foundation in Medicine Hat here.
Yeah.
What were some surprises of getting into the foundation space? Good, bad, the ugly. Anything you would want to kind of do differently if you had to do it again? Talk me through that kind of journey of your life.
Yeah. So the first thing I'll say about the Interman project, it was probably on my top three best experiences of my life.
Such a good cause, man.
Like it was to be engaged every Sunday night with 10 to 20 guys sitting in a room during a time where we weren't supposed to be together, but because we were considered a nonprofit, we actually fell into the category of a church. So we were allowed 15 to 20 people depending on the size of the space. But interacting with guys, and you realize that a lot of men struggle and they live a quiet life of desperation.
Mm,
And that was an eye opener for me. The other side of that is you realize how important something is when you make it a community thing,
yeah.
right? Because if I just go out and help a friend here and there, that might be one or two people. The thing that we always got criticism on with the Interman was, well, if you're a nonprofit and you're out in the community, why are you about raising money? Well, not one day, not 1 hour of our time did we pay ourselves. Every single dollar went back to the community. And that's kind of where things kind of take a turn, because as a nonprofit, you rely on grants.
Yeah.
We weren't a charity, so we couldn't give out tax receipts. So anything that was a donation to us was simply people giving us money out of their own pocket to do good.
Mm,
So you have to rely on a lot on grants. You have to rely a lot on government support, municipal report. You have to rely on a lot of people that don't care, to be frank. They say they care, but they're so busy in other things that they're doing. You know, you take the city of Medicine Hat and the community foundation. We were so small. We were such a blip on the radar compared to infrastructure, housing, all these different things that are such a larger impact than men's mental health. And when we started reaching out to the community about youth mental health, and when Mel really started getting into the grief support with these women who were losing these husbands and brothers and sons during this difficult moment in Medicine Hat's history, that's when we really started to expand, and that's when the community really came together. So it really opened my eyes. It really gave me a positive light on the city of Medicine Hat and the communities that we're helping. Not just Medicine Hat, but the town of Hannah, the town of Tabor. We had groups in Edmonton. We were expanding across the country. Where it was difficult and where I think it started getting harder to manage, and why we actually ended up closing down, was a lack of funding. And that's because the government of Alberta, the city of Medicine Hat, couldn't provide us funding. And if we don't have funding, we can't keep our doors open. If we can't keep our doors open, we can't keep our programs running,
People
right?
don't understand with not-for-profits or anything in that space how expensive they are to actually just operate. And we're not talking about you guys getting paid. I'm just talking about keeping the doors open. Like
Yes.
it is so much more than people think, right?
Yes.
And it's unfortunate that that's the case, but that is reality in terms of, you guys keeping up with compliance and keeping your doors open, having a space for people to go, et cetera, et
Mhm.
cetera. It's everywhere you turn, it's expenses on expenses, and
Yeah.
I'm sad to hear that because it was such a good community to be a part of, or at least know it's available, and I
Yes.
think that's a huge piece too, right?
Yeah, it's kind of funny you say that because like everyone knew about it, but we were going through such a difficult time through COVID that people had a hard time supporting it financially. And I understand that. Like, I'll give you an example. In the 18 months we were quote unquote in business, not one person took an income. At one point, we had 30 volunteers helping on a weekly basis. We raised $150,000 and we put $150,000 back into the community. And it doesn't seem like that much on the radar, but from a grassroots perspective, it helped a lot. All the podcast stuff in that place was from myself. I went above and beyond to try and set something up so I can get the word out. When it came to the facilities that we used the first 6 months, Back Alley Fitness gave us their facility. The VR place downtown, I really apologize for forgetting the name. They gave us a facility to go and do this when we expanded before we got an office space. So the community came together. Every single person that was a volunteer on that team ended up coming together to help, spent their own time and their own resources to go into the community. So that was a huge benefit. The thing I learned the most though about the Interman project was you have to be really careful with the team that you create. And that helped me a lot in understanding expansion of business, not just nonprofit space, but the people who are on your team are so important for the end goal. And so for me, and the partners that we started with, our good friend Shane Cockrell and my wife, when we first started this together, and the small group of guys we got at the beginning, it was to help as many men in Medicine Hat and whoever else we could help. And when we started focusing in on Medicine Hat, that was great. But when we started expanding and we had resources in Calgary, we would run a session here every Monday in Calgary in another city that had 30 guys showing up, and it was all volunteer. So we were expanding cities, and that really, it really put a wrench into things for a lot of guys because they didn't like the idea of helping other people. And you sit there and you go, well, that's our whole goal, is to help as many men as possible. And so it really made me, reflecting afterwards and taking a deep breath afterwards, reflecting on how you build a team, what the culture continues to be like, and how you can continue to develop that culture.
There's a lot there, man, and I remember just being in some of those messaging and like just the vulnerability of some guys reaching out and just saying I need help, and the volume of that was shocking to me. Shocking.
Yeah.
The need that community served was crazy. Now, from you being in that space, I want to talk about whether it's mental health, whether it's addiction, whether whatever it is. What's your thoughts on the role and the importance of having a community as support instead of maybe like a one-on-one? What's the differences, the benefits of having a community? Because I know how powerful that can be, but I wanted to hear from you.
So yeah, the community aspect is huge, and I'll take a different angle to it. Is you mentioned that one-on-one support. One thing that we found with guys who were struggling is as soon as we got them on the track of helping other people, they themselves became better. So the first thing that I realized was once we got them integrated into a community and became social and served other people, that's when they started seeing themselves heal. And that was huge. That was a huge eye opener for me because, we think of, getting on a good diet and having a healthy marriage and going to see a therapist. That's all great. But if you don't have a purpose, if you're just going to your 9 to 5, coming home, watching Netflix, and there's really nothing going on, you're serving no purpose other than a cog in a machine somewhere, and then sometimes it's not even a good machine, it's really, really difficult to get that mindset shifted. And so for us, community was the biggest thing because not only were we able to provide a resource to the community, the people that were getting help became the resource.
It's like when people can give, they then feel better. I don't know what it
Mhm.
is about being humans, but that's like ingrained in us. And I find having a community where there's people that you can visually see that are struggling with the same thing. There's like this level of comfort with that I found anyways. It's like,
Yeah,
holy smokes, I'm not the only one. Like,
that's right.
oh, what this person said is exactly how I feel. That's crazy. I
Hmm.
think I think maybe this is okay to be in this space and it's safe. It's like the cloud cover kind of lifts in a community, and I think if people just keep it to themselves or even one on one, I'm not saying one on one's bad, but it's just you don't get the exposure of like, oh, other people are going through this, they're being vulnerable. The more vulnerable that they're being, I feel like now I can be more vulnerable, and then thus a breakthrough happens, right? So
Yeah. What was really crazy, Ryan, is okay, so on a weekly basis for a long time, men would come to us and give us their suicide notes, which is I don't know if you should bleep that out or not, that word specifically.
yeah.
But that was an eye opener for us. But not only was it an eye opener for us, but you kind of start realizing that every guy who's writing these notes and every guy that came to Shane and I with these situations, they were all kind of dealing with the same thing. And that same thing, every single time, Ryan, was circumstantial. Not once, like, there was the odd person who had, like, maybe bipolar disorder or even schizophrenia, but most of the time it was like, my marriage is on the rocks, my kids don't talk to me, I'm about to lose my car, I can't pay rent this month. It was just compounding effect and compounding effect. And then when you sit down with somebody and you're like, hey, reach out to this resource to help pay your bills, reach out to this resource to help get free counseling for you and your wife, and reach out to this resource to help you become a better parent. It was like the sky opened up for most people. And these resources are available on a simple Google search. And then you start realizing that these individuals don't know these resources exist, but they're in a place that's so dark they can't even think to Google it,
Yeah.
right? So that was it was a real it wasn't just an anomaly, it became kind of the consistent, whereas we saw many men, like you said, have the same issues, but once they got out of that, they were then able to help the next person, right?
It compounds, right? And life can get so overwhelming that you can't see what's right in front of you. Like you said, the answer could be on the other side of a Google search, but if you don't have a community to nudge you in that direction, it's very difficult to see that stuff, right?
Absolutely, yeah.
Well, man, I can't think of a better note to end that on because there's so much help available, and what you've done for the community, whether it be in Medicine Hat or all of Alberta, man, and even what you're doing now, helping people grow businesses. Just thank you from the bottom of my heart, man. It's good to watch you from afar. We need to get together more. I know that, but just know that what you're doing is good, man, and I really really appreciate your friendship.
Awesome, buddy. Well, thank you for having me on, and all the best to you in your future endeavors with the podcast, man.
We'll talk soon, buddy. Okay,
All
I'll
right.
see you.
Bye.
Peace.